What is toxicity? This is a question which I've repeatedly asked myself over the last several years, especially after having multiple friends telling me that I needed to cut off other friends or individuals who they had perceived to be toxic. Now, what I find funny about that notion is that a lot of people call out others for being toxic. More often than not, I found to be toxic as well. The pot calling the kettle black, so to speak. Granted, this is not the case for every situation. After all, some of my closest and longest running friends are ones that call out bad behavior. Now, the reason for this commentary is because I recently broke contact with an individual who I thought had been a good friend of mine. That said, I'm not calling them a bad person, so to speak. But I do feel like they made themselves appear to be one way when, in reality, they were something else. And because of a few actions that they decided to take, as well as one which I personally think went way too far, I was forced to draw the first hard line I've ever had to make with an individual. For context, I had been in a Discord server of theirs. One of their server rules had been you're not allowed to start or bring any drama into the server. So, what did they do? Well, for those who guessed that they started or brought drama into the server, ding ding ding, you'd be correct. And while I won't get into every single detail of what happened, the gist is as follows. Person who I met on VR chat, I'll call them C for simplicity's sake, was an individual who I hung out with on VR chat as well as Discord. They found out about a conversation I had between two Xbox Live friends of mine, people who they never met, and they got mad about it. Later, they invited me to a group call on their Discord server, interrogated me as if I was in court, and got pissy after I truthfully answered all their questions without any hesitation or remorse, and then stated that they never wanted me to associate with them ever again. As per the conversation that took place, the two friends had made blunt remarks about something to which I personally found to be funny. Not necessarily the comments themselves, but the fact that they delivered it in such a manner that I couldn't help but react with laughter. So obviously, this was a situation that hadn't been an issue until C made it an issue and broke their own rule by bringing it up into the server. Yeah, it's hypocritical, but not the end of the world, so yeah. The real kicker was how they found out. So, C and I have a mutual friend who I'll refer to as H. H is someone who I told about the conversation to. The only person I told about the conversation to from the server that the three of us shared. After my interrogation in C's server, I had asked H if they voluntarily chose to tell C or if C had forced it out of them, and what H said had become the catalyst for me drawing my first hard line. They told me that C had access to their account, meaning that C viewed a private conversation between us without either of our consent, and then used that as an excuse to have me removed from their server. Quick side note, I had actually left before they had that opportunity. This led me to promptly blocking C afterwards, partially out of C requesting that I never associate with them again, and partially because of the fact that what they did was genuinely screwed up. And people who know me can attest to the fact that I'm one who rarely, if ever, blocks someone based on the actions that they've taken. Just another quick side note before moving on. I actually found out some days ago that H had lied about C having access to their account. They claimed it was a cover story. Apparently, it was apparently done in retaliation to something I had done to them before. Regardless, I'm still going to be keeping my distance from C due to a litany of other issues I've personally had with them, and just because of the fact that since breaking communication with them, I feel like I've been able to relax way more. So, earlier I stated that people who I found to call out toxicity were more often than not people who I found to be toxic as well. Yet, I also stated that some of my closest and longest running friends were people who called out toxicity. So, that then raises the question, how does one spot the difference between genuine friends and fake friends? After having pondered the thought for a bit, my conclusion boiled down to just two words: loyalty and humility. Just like with fake friends, you're eventually going to have arguments or fights with the real ones. However, one thing I've noticed is that with real friends, even if you have a fight or an argument, they will be willing to drop the heat afterwards and continue conversing like normal. And if they do go too far, they will recognize and take responsibility where it's due. For instance, one of my longest running friends is someone who I've known since 2012. Throughout 2014, we spent at least half the year arguing with each other, to the point where it happened every day and it had more or less become a competition of who could shout more angrily at the other. This same person is someone who's gifted me games, computer parts, and helped me scope out parts for my desktop. And while we don't always get on the same page, I'm fortunate enough that he's willing to tolerate my stubbornness and shit the same way I do. We still argue to this day, mind you, but we then immediately laugh about it afterwards. Another good friend of mine, Pro Ace Joker, is someone who I've known since 2015. Due to him teaching me how to get better at Apex Legends, I've had a couple criticize the way he's interacted with me, saying that he was toxic and not someone who I should necessarily be around. Quick side note, one who has been very vocal of that ended up severing contact after I rejected their ultimatums. Irony. However, not only did he acknowledge the harsh behavior multiple times, but he also worked on improving it, seeing that I operated better in different ways. And like the previous friend, he also gifted me a headset as to help me do better in matches. People like these are ones that I consider to be actual friends. People that can be harsh, but caring. Stubborn, but loyal. One that aren't just okay with dishing out, but receiving as well. So, what is toxicity? Well, to be honest, I think it can be a combination of multiple things. But in simple terms, I think one could describe it as a type of behavior in which one more or less benefits at the expense of another. Where, for example, friends will move on from a mistake that you made, while others may use it as a way to guilt trip you into acting differently. Or, if they make a mistake, they'll shift blame onto you and act innocent. Perhaps lie to you in order to gain something, instead of being truthful and risking something. Telling you that it's their way or the highway, something which I've personally had to recently experience. Just simple things at the end of the day that will leave you emotionally drained instead of satisfied and energized till next time. There are honestly dozens of examples I feel like I could give, but to prevent this from turning into a bullet point list, I think I'll end it here. So, these are my thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree with what I've stated here? Do you feel differently? Or is there something you feel needs to be added? Whatever you're thinking, let me know down in the comments below. And before I end this off, I want to give a massive shout out to KumaFox for all the recent support he's given me and for being the first to get my back in the heat of the moment. Until next video, Graywolf signing out.